I freeze every so often.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Experience Talks Zoomcast. I am very, very happy about this one. We have the members and the teacher of the Writing for Life writing class at the Burbank Senior Artist Colony, a place that is very near and dear to my heart. So I want to introduce everybody. First off, Sarah Jacobus, our engaged master teaching artist. Sarah, wave hello so everybody can see.
Hello.
And then I'm just going to introduce all of the class members here. We have Regina Rock.
Hi.
Sally Connors.
Hi.
Jan Furman. Give us a wave, Jan. Dolly Britton.
Hi.
Phyllis Shankman.
Hi.
Suzanne Canody.
Hello.
And Claire Graff.
Hi there.
Ladies, welcome to the show. So this is the culminating event of a writing class that's happened just like this on Zoom for the last several weeks. And each person is we're going to hear writing from each person on the Zoom cast today. And then I also want to, this went out in the email, but this is the cover of the book that Sarah created, 2020 Vision. And I think that the graphic says it all about how clearly we've been able to see 2020. And we're going to hear some writing about how clearly we have seen 2020 today. So Sarah, first of all, I want to talk about what was it about this class for you? What were you trying to address with it? It's called Writing for Life. This is obviously a very, very interesting time to inspire people to be creative. What were you thinking going into this class?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share the work of these gifted writers and to share with you something about what these last months of meeting on Zoom have meant for all of us. Our class actually had been meeting for a year plus when we went into sheltering in place as a result of COVID-19 and adjusted our class to Zoom. And from the beginning, I have really wanted the class to be an opportunity both to experience the act of writing in the moment, to let it flow without any kind of critical judgment going on. And at the same time, to give writers who were working on something else an opportunity to use the class time in any way that would best serve their writing. So that's been the goal overall. And I think that since we've been meeting virtually, for all of us, I would say, I hope I speak for all of us, that the class has been such an important anchor. Perhaps even more than before, because our opportunities for engagement with other people have been so limited. And so we've been meeting twice a month. Happily, we were able to go to meeting weekly. So it's been a very consistent anchor and a consistent time for just immersing in creativity and imagination, having some period of time every week where everything else can, for the most part, be set aside.
For the most part, in all caps, bold, and italics, I would
right,
add.
and parentheses as well.
So let's go ahead and start hearing some writing from the class. Can you kick us off for the first part of the reading?
Sure, and I would say the first part is the for the most part, because at the beginning or early on in each session, we do what I call clearing writing or check-in writing, where we take 12, 15 minutes to just scribble out anything that's right on top that may be distracting us, worrying, elating us, but any scattered thoughts that might be getting in the way of just being fully present for the writing class. And not surprisingly, a lot of the writing that's happened during this check-in period has addressed life with COVID-19. So the first section of the book is writing from this check-in period. And Phyllis, you'd start us off.
March 26th, 2020. I wake early these days. Today was no exception. I'm not sleeping well, have not since I returned to my cabin in Idaho 2 weeks ago. I'm up 3 to 4 times each night to go to the bathroom and stretch my calves, which are cramping again. I must make the effort to get out and walk more, despite my fear of falling or not wanting to walk in the mud. Our roads here are simple dirt roads, and there's mud everywhere because it's still raining and snowing occasionally. My confusion is this seesaw of emotions between gratitude at being here in the country away from LA and the cramped apartment I was sharing with Tim for the past 6 months in Burbank, and the anxiety of being away from my family and doctors. The virus has not arrived here in Idaho yet, but I suspect it will. And this is a small community, half of whom are Trump supporters and believe his BS, so they are not consistently sheltering in place. Our young liberal mayor has ordered everything shut down: restaurants, bars, libraries, health clubs, but many in this town are fighting him. It's sort of a 50-50 situation, and it frightens me, since I'm now considered by our Orange Führer and his minions to be one of the, quote, expendables, end quote. Our small community hospital only has 3 ICU beds. So the simple truth is that if I were to get sick with COVID here, there's no way I could get back to LA and the care I would need unless the airlines would allow me on the plane, which seems less and less likely as days and weeks pass. I wonder what it would cost to hire a private plane to fly me back to LA. Those are the kinds of thoughts that run through my mind in the night. At the moment, I feel fine. The air here is fresh and clean. The house is warm. My cats are happy to have me back. That's the plus side. I need to turn off my mind, de-stress, and let go of the endless what ifs. For now, there's no clear knowing. I just have to breathe and trust.
April 7th. In the apartment in Burbank, 4 walls and a terrace, longing to see the others, but we can't. Pandemic is a narrow space, a squeeze, an oppression. Trying to get back to New York, the lion's den, but it's home, very tight. The first flight, JetBlue, canceled from Burbank Airport, now switching to LAX. In the meantime, a tooth extracted. Throbbing pain finally beginning to subside. Still here in Burbank, counting down. 9 days more. Alaska Airlines had better leave for JFK than Whitestone, where we will again be sitting with no one, unable to go anywhere. Until when?
April 14th. It is so good to see and hear fellow humans during this time. It has been over a month since I left this building. Believe it or not, time does go by. And the longer we stay at home, the faster it seems to go. I'm amazed when another Saturday comes around and I have to change my sheets. Oh, it can't be Saturday already? No way. But it is. And the new normal seems to have time speeding by like it did in the old normal. I hear we may be allowed fewer restrictions soon, and that scares me a little. How safe will it be to go out in the world with COVID-19 still lurking around each corner? April 21st. It's been 6 weeks of staying at home, and it can be a discouraging time. However, it's also an encouraging time. Look what we've accomplished by staying home. I know we have saved many lives, my own included. Look how we have come together through our technology in order to stay connected. May 19th. I realized I had to go to the dentist and my heart was racing at thoughts of leaving my apartment for the first time in over 11 weeks. I didn't realize how much fear is tangled up with leaving my apartment for the first time in so long. Would I still remember how to drive my car? Would I be able to find the dentist's office? So many fearful questions going around in my brain. May 26th. I took a foray into the scary world of coronavirus on Wednesday with my trip to the dentist, and it was nerve-wracking in the beginning. Just driving the car after so long took its toll. Then there was all the protocol at the dentist's office to protect me and them from the virus. My temperature was taken. I walked on a disinfecting mat to sterilize the soles of my shoes. Then I squished a disinfecting mouthwash and washed my hands for 20 seconds. By the time I arrived in my room and met my masked, gloved, and robed dentist and assistant, I was ready to pass out. However, I was able to withstand the visit and afterwards appeared in my car in the parking lot, rather invigorated. I drove around Burbank looking at my neighborhood, registering the light traffic and the pedestrians. I'm glad I was forced out into the world. Without the dental problem, I would probably still be apartment bound for another couple of months. I'm not ready to put myself in harm's way, but I feel confident in my ability to still function in this new normal. June 16th. Most of my days are good. My Zoom sessions with people I know and with people I'm getting to know over the past few months seem to set a tone for my day. I'm energized by talking and laughing with people. It does make a difference. July 6th. I find it harder and harder to get up from the chair and do something. The harder is not a physical something, but a mental harder. I have found this progressing as the stay-at-home order gets longer. It's easy to blame the stay-at-home for many things. Some, I'm sure, are accurate. We are finishing our 4th month, and sometimes the anxiety it causes prevents me from doing anything except sitting in a chair.
I have 2 pieces that will be read today by Sarah Jacobus. Thank you, Sarah.
My pleasure. July 7th. Climbing the walls is not my favorite pastime, but it's all I can do now that the plague is here. I walk the empty hallways as if it were a forest with growing things planted by the past. The walls close in. I put one hand over the other and pull myself up into the clouds. I want to let go until I hit rain and it washes away windows and doors. The hallway grows larger and I fall backwards into my life. July 14th. There's so many things to miss during quarantine when we're cut off from the outside. I long for the freedom of rain, a life form nurturing my skin. I think of all the rains I've known, the desert rain waiting in the clouds but never making it to earth, just the scent of sage in the air. On Kauai, great swoops of rain swept across the island. In the graveyard, the fallen petals from sweet plumeria. In Florida, it rains for days. Roads and the yard flood. Lightning and thunder define our days. Explosions inside and out. As the quarantine circles around me, I slip inside the memory of rain.
Amazing.
A prompt.
So let's talk about, Claire, we're going to just talk briefly about the pandemic pieces before we move on to you.
Okay.
So my first thought is that you nailed so many of the things that I've been feeling. I'm sure everyone has been feeling during this time. Let's each of you talk a little bit about what inspired you to write in this way. Phyllis, maybe you can start us out. You began. You're obviously somewhere else. You're not in your apartment in Burbank. You're up in Idaho. Does this type of writing help you when you do this during the day and write down the feelings that you're having?
Yes, absolutely.
talk a little bit about what it's like being there versus here. Right? You did during your piece, but I'm curious what it's like to be away for quite a bit of time.
It's different because I'm in the country and I can go outside, and I'm in a very beautiful setting with mountains and lakes and forests, which is very healing and nurturing for me. But I've had this cabin for a long time, and I have a bunch of friends here. Nobody is going out. Everybody, at least my community of friends, are all, for the most part, older women, and they're staying in. So I've been here since March. It's now October. I've hardly seen anybody. And so it's been challenging, even when you're in this perfect, beautiful environment. There's a level of isolation that's been painful and challenging. So the writing helps, and I have these wonderful friends from Burbank who I miss a lot. And so getting to see them every week helps. It helps a lot. So
Fantastic.
I miss you guys.
We miss you.
Miss you too.
And Regina, your writing was the close to the opposite. You express a desire to escape and get away in your writing. I think we all can relate to that. How does that make you feel to kind of not be able to leave where you are and get to where you want to be?
Well, I did leave, but while I was there, it was like an imprisonment. Although I did go for a walk every day. We did go for, my husband and I, go for a walk every day. But because we come from New York, well, we go back and forth. And my grandchild and, son and daughter-in-law are in New York. Well, I also have a son and daughter in California. That's why we go back and forth.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see my grandson, and that was, really hard not to be able to see him. But since we've been here, which we came back in, when did we come back? April. So we started seeing them in May because they made us part of their bubble or their cohort or whatever you call that. And so we have been seeing people, which is a godsend.
That's great. Sally, I thought yours was really interesting because yours spans a period of time, and obviously it gives us some feeling for the ups and downs of what this is like. Can you talk about that?
Well, the last one that I read, I am able to get out of the chair now, thanks to all the Zoom classes that I have. It's been a roller coaster. What are we going to do? Are we going to live? Because being of the age that we are all susceptible to this COVID-19. And I don't know, it's hard to say. Right now I'm in a good place because I really feel healthier mentally, physically, and spiritually because of the yoga class that I have 4 days a week, and the fitness class that I have, Sarah's writing class. And this morning before we came here, I was with my Burbank singers and we were singing, although we were all on mute. We were still singing, which I couldn't do. As you know, you can't sing on Zoom together. So it's been difficult. And like Regina, I'm so thankful that I have a daughter who lives here, and we kind of have our own little bubble. And I get to see her, and she brings me my groceries. It's really, in a way, it's kind of nice because I feel really taken care of. I've always been a very independent, I am going to control this, I'm going to do this. It's kind of nice to sit back and have somebody else pamper you once in a while. So in that way, it's been kind of nice. But I will be very happy when I can safely go outside. Because right now, I don't leave the building. To me, it's not worth it.
Yeah, Yeah, I get that. Jan, I found the way that this type of writing inspired you to poetry and looking at things in a poetic and more lyrical way. What inspires you to write in that way versus more of a journalistic journal type thing? Have you always been a poet? Right? Does writing come out of you in the form of poetry and lyrics?
Yeah, it really does. I started out as a poet, then I ventured off into fiction for a long time, but I came back to poetry when my husband died, and I've been going at it ever since. And it seems like now it's all that's what comes out no matter what I try to write. And that's a good thing for me.
And I love the way that your writing almost inspires you to think of where you want to be and what you want to be experiencing. I mean, for me, I've experienced the range you've talked about in both places, and the idea of almost the cleansing nature of that really struck a heart chord to me.
Well, I miss nature so much. That's one of the things I miss the most about the quarantine. I don't leave the building except to go out into the courtyard, which is mostly cement, to exercise. So it has to happen in my head, if nowhere else.
You do a beautiful job of doing that, and you've given us all a gift by doing that for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Claire. Let's see where this writing class brought you.
I think it's been an absolute lifeline on many levels. Socially, it's given me an opportunity to meet the other people that live here and get to know them more quickly in a deeper way than if I just bumped into them in the hallways. I mean, it's been a beautiful experience to hear what their thoughts and feelings are and about their personal lives and their experiences in the past and present and what their hopes are for the future. That's pretty amazing to be able to do that. And it's because of this class. In terms of, the other classes, as Sally mentioned, again, it's an opportunity to stay in touch with other people. And to also feel like some sort of connection with outside that doesn't get filtered or manufactured or altered or edited by the news, machines. And that's really important. It's been very valuable. This specifically also this class, I think I really have to say a huge thank you to Sarah. It's her way of working with us has given me an opportunity to come back to writing and just have that freedom to realize I can just do it, just write. That's all, just write.
Great. Can we hear your piece?
Oh, okay. This is the prompt. It's clams. And we all had labored for hours in the cold and rain, shoveling clumps of heavy, wet sand and chasing clams down blowholes until our arms ached. Geneva's plump little hand directed us to clusters of holes in the sand. The holes were sure signs of clams near the surface. Spade in hand, with fingers red from the cold, I dug and cleaved away from each hole a small mountain of sand. I was sad to see I had crushed so many shells in my zeal to unearth the clam treasures. Exhilarated by the wind, 3-year-old Geneva chased the sandpipers that mocked us for stealing their clams. Ooh, Mommy, clams? We had plopped the clams in buckets of water, seawater. Little bubbles barely gave away that the inanimate clumps in the buckets were alive. We lugged the buckets the half-mile back to the old red wood-framed house. There in the screened porch, the buckets sat until dinner. Geneva was delighted to feed the clams heaping cups of cornmeal. She had no idea the cornmeal would disgorge the clams of unsavory waste. And, of course, she had no idea that they were a part of dinner. Laughter and chatter filled the Kavanaugh's old kitchen. Geneva ran from adult to adult, soliciting stories and conversation. Outside, the gray day faded into night. Finally, we sat down in mismatched chairs set around the wide planked table. We smiled at one another in the golden glow of overhead bulbs and table lamps. I said a silent prayer of gratitude. We exchanged plates laden with mounds of steamed clams, corn on the cob, glazed carrots and potatoes, a bowl of bright green salad, and a basket of biscuits. Someone seated next to Geneva set a half-open clam on her plate with some butter. She peered into the open bivalve, surprised. Suddenly, the little clump of steamed clam was plucked from its shell, rubbed in the butter, and handed to her. She popped it into her mouth. A stunned look of joy crossed her face. She pointed at the big platter of clams. "More, please?" Coating each one with butter, she chewed each one with great relish. She barely stopped to look up. Everyone marveled at the large pile of vacated shells. I caught Geneva's look. Actually, I believed that it was the butter that had kept her asking for more. But no matter. Her big brown eyes flashed bright, and her flushed face buttery grin radiated happiness. From that moment to now, all that matters is the memory of her pure joy.
Fabulous. I love the way that the prompts bring a whole different type of writing to there's kind of the flight of fancy, memory, beauty writing versus oh my God, it's another day of the coronavirus.
She's always giving us such creative prompts, not just photos, but other prompts. They're just great. Yeah.
She is something that's there. Regina, can we hear your next piece?
Yes. The prompt is a contest. There was going to be a new board election at the Civic Association, and two men were running for president. One of them, George, was an unknown, even though he had been a member of the Civic for quite some time. Still, he had never involved himself in the work of the board, which is voluntary. As a lawyer, he was busy, but now he was going to try to put in some volunteer time. The other guy running for president, Jonathan, was a known entity to the older members of the Civic Association, and not in a good way. A known thorn in the side and do nothing, he talked a good game, and none of the newer members knew what a total zero he was. In fact, he had never volunteered for anything, never helped in any way. To the contrary, he had sued the board more than once in the past because he wanted to get a closer look at the finances, which were clearly posted on the website. But nothing seemed to be enough for this guy. The newer members seemed to be blindsided by his lofty rhetoric and ability to talk about himself as if he were God's gift to the world. The older members of the board, who had once been president themselves, decided to meet with George to help him raise his profile and show himself in his best light. He was a lawyer, so they thought that shouldn't be too difficult. When they met with him, it was obvious that he was a much better choice than Jonathan. He was genuinely interested in the town and helping the lake community stay afloat. The question was, how were they going to convince the others? Being a volunteer president was not the easiest task in the world. It was a lot of work for very little appreciation. Many people just complained. It was the personification of the expression, "Let no good deed go unpunished." Our only hope was that George's bio would show the new members what a good guy he was, and they would be persuaded to vote for him. Otherwise, we knew that if Jonathan became president, the Civic Association would go to pot, and the town would take over the lake, and that would be the end of our precious lake community. We really did not want that to happen after all our hard work.
Beautiful. I especially love how you took the concept of the contest as a prompt and went to something, a complete and total work of fiction about a presidential contest where someone talks a good game but is a total zero and has never done anything good for anyone. That could never happen.
Sound familiar?
I'd just like to say a word about the prompts. And one of the things that's so delightful is hearing all the different directions that writers go from the same prompt. None of the writers chose to read pieces from the same prompt, but in the book, you really get a sense of that. And for example, the contest prompt was Regina's, which we've heard, Sally, who wrote about a contest in a workplace, the prize of which was a trip to Paris. And one of the employees was sabotaging the other employees. Another writer wrote about, in the voice of a baby, whose mother had entered this baby into a cute baby contest. So it's just always a pleasure to hear the different directions. And writers in the group are writing in a variety of genres. Jan, as you've addressed, tends to write in poems. But the writers have written fiction, nonfiction, and one of the things that we've talked about a lot is the porous boundaries between fiction and nonfiction, and the extent to which, depending on what the work is, it really matters very little, and how the elements of fiction are incorporated into and enrich nonfiction work, and vice versa. So that's just the degree of variety in the writing that the writers in this group are doing is just keeps it always lively and fresh.
Fantastic. So, and Suzanne, I wrote to another prompt that seems somewhat timely, I think. Suzanne, can you give us your piece?
Yes, I can. An experience with the police. I was meeting up with my fellow history student for a quick bite before seeing a movie. I was looking forward to this for many reasons, but the one I kind of kept keeping to myself was the main test coming up. John is so much brighter than me, and maybe he would have some suggestions to kickstart my brain to a new place. Oh, stop it, Susie. You're just as smart as I am. And besides, we read almost all the same material together. So instead of me telling you, I have a much better approach. On and on throughout our delightful meal, my wonderful friend kept getting correct answers out of me and showing my strength. As we finished our dessert, a light rain started, so we decided to drive to the theater. John's car was the closest, and after a slow start, we slowly crawled along in the rain traffic. Flashing red lights could be seen in both the rear view mirror and the door side by my window. A soft siren started. John slowly pulled the car to the curb and gave me a quick glance with his shoulders going up and down in question. He rolled his window down and you could see a dark blue uniform body and hear a voice from above say, "Can I see your registration and license, please?" This was not a question, but a firm order. John reached over me and opened the glove compartment, keeping one hand on the wheel. I had a strange thought that looked so uncomfortable. He handed the papers to the officer and asked me to take his wallet out of his back pocket while he kept both hands on the wheel. And of course I did, but wondered why he was acting this way. He handed over the license and we waited and waited and waited in silence while the officer returned to his police car. "You didn't have your red lights on, or are they broken?" "Oh no, sir, they were on." I leaned over to say I saw him turn them on and maybe the rain, but he stopped me and he said, "Are you all right, miss?" I gave him an of course look and said I was fine. And then he asked me again. I leaned over to try and whisper to John that he just didn't understand, but John's face was stone and I froze. Something uncomfortable started sipping into the car, and I just knew it was leading to a fear I had never known. Would you step outside, please? John suddenly seemed different from the person I had just had a meal with. Sir, I didn't do anything. His voice trailed off as he watched the officer use his phone to call for backup. This new fear is now getting stronger. So you're under arrest. Please step out of the car. What? In a slow, quiet voice, I heard my strong friend say, please put your hands behind your back. He does as he is told and then leaves, and then is led to the police car where the officer puts his hands on top of John's head and steers him into the back seat. A strong siren starts, along with flashing lights as the police car slowly pulls away. The second officer puts his head in the driver's window and asks if I have a way home. I said, I have my car, and step out into the light rain and watch as a waiting tow truck approaches John's car. Within minutes, the street I knew with John's car and the police were gone. I turned and started walking towards the movie theater, caught myself, and tried to remember where I had parked the car.
Another piece that for me brings up things that have been happening recently around what some people must feel
Yes.
when they fear an encounter with the police.
Exactly. And it seems that it's being talked about currently with so many of the other things going on, the Black Lives Matters movement, the virus, the elections, the Senate, just on and on. We're all dealing with so much. And what I wanted to do was to write something short that looked innocent, but really is a horror. And that's what that was about.
And on a lighter note, it's not your first time with writing about crime. Your film that was made at the Burbank Theater was calling Bandita was a little lighter version about an older woman who robs the liquor store across the street. And I can't tell from this writing and that writing whether you are afraid of a life of crime or you want to embrace that. A little bit both. There's an outlaw in there somewhere as well. Thank you, Suzanne. Jan has a piece.
I have two pieces today, which will be read for me by Claire Graff. Thank you, Claire.
Welcome. My mother's moon. The moon rises pale as parchment, full of stories she'll never tell. Her eyes are round with fear. I see scars on her cheeks that are not from the weather. The light deepens to blood orange, the color of a gypsy dancer's skirt. She swirls and twirls barefoot in a wildfire. My mother's moon turns so white it hurts my eyes. Keep them open, she says. In this world, you'll need all the light you can get. Fire on the river. The people beat drums as if they were canoes to carry them forward. Voices rise amid fall into the thick brown water. Slapping at the surface, demanding to be heard, there is no turning back. The grapes of wrath have all been eaten. This is when the moon shatters into 1,000 sparks and lights the current below. You can see the river in their eyes.
Amazing. So, Jan, I am a writer, but not a poet, and I always wonder what it's like. How does a poem form first in your mind? How are you inspired to go from a blank page to those two amazing pieces? Where does a poem start with you?
I think for me, it starts with an image, which can be kind of a dangerous thing because sometimes you don't know where to go once you've got the image, but you're forced to write in that direction. Fire on the River I wrote because it was during the time of the protests. I wanted to write about that, but I didn't want to write about it in a real definite way. I wanted it to be something people thought about. To try to see the cracks through the wall. So that's really where it starts. And then from there, you build on it with other images.
Yeah, such a lyrical power with words. Amazing. Really, really beautiful. Thank you.
We tease Jan because oftentimes before Jan reads, even though we do have a no qualifier rule before you read, but Jan will often say, oh, well, this is very short. And the rest of us have collectively agreed that Jan can say more in a few words than I'll speak for myself than I can often say in pages and pages. So it's a quality that I particularly admire.
Insane. Ms. Holly, can you talk to us with a piece?
Okay, so this is my prompt, this photograph, and this is what I wrote. I am grateful for a good night's sleep, feeling more rested than I have been in many months. I decide to walk to work today, even though it's raining. The raindrops so refreshing on my face. My fervent wishes and prayers with every step I take are that the rain will wash away this horrible, deadly COVID-19 virus. The grey skies perfectly reflect my grey life and the emotions overwhelming me. I'm almost at the hospital to begin another 3-day shift. I find that I'm dragging my feet, reluctant to face the sadness and frightening environment where the work used to fill me with worthiness and satisfaction. I've been non-stop nursing without reprieve, but can't come to terms with so many people dying in spite of implementing every possible intervention. The frustration and feelings of being helpless, even after 15 years of nursing experience, is quite devastating. At first, the fear of taking this curse home to my family consumed me. But now, is it possible? I'm too tired to think or feel. I just race from one patient to the other, setting up life-saving machinery and mechanisms with too low a success rate. Fortunately, my colleagues, the doctors, nurses, and technicians have formed a tight-knit, if worn-out group, supporting and shoring each other up, all hands and minds working as one and never giving up. Everyone's so happy and relieved when a patient has recovered and is being discharged, standing in the hallway, cheering, clapping, and sending well wishes. This light at the end of a very dark tunnel keeps us going, restores hope and optimism, and helps us get through one more hour, one more week, one more month. We keep reminding each other, this too shall pass, and those who survive will have learned a valuable lesson to rebuild, restore, and renew our beautiful earth, and stop and smell the roses. Thank you.
So you put yourself in the shoes of probably one of the more frightening versions of this story that we're all living right now in terms of the healthcare workers and the things that they have to deal with. In looking at the photo prompt, how did you go from that photo to one wanting to do that, and two, how did you capture so successfully what it must feel like to be in that woman's shoes?
Well, I looked at the photograph and it was, the only bright part was the red. The rest was so gray and depressing, and I thought, she looks as if she's dragging her feet. And so that's where it all came about. And And it is my way of distracting myself from my own fears and anxieties by trying to feel what other people feel. And I do manage to distract myself during the day, but I find that my subconscious sort of takes over at night, and I'm having the most awful nightmares. So obviously, I'm trying to conceptualize and understand, and not, or at least my subconscious is trying to find an answer. So far, I have only become more and more frustrated and angry, and there doesn't seem to be an answer. But I love writing, and I must thank Sarah as well, because she is so encouraging and empathetic. And I think that's what stimulates us and makes us feel great, apart from the fact of seeing all our friends, which we aren't able to do. And I often feel I would like to offer them to make a cup of tea, but it's not a Zoom, it is a Zoom visit. So all in all, I'm so grateful for Zoom and technology, although I'm not very literate when it comes to it, but it's a lifesaver.
I think that's an interesting segue into kind of a larger conversation, because we all, it's one of the comments was that we look like the Brady Bunch. There's the exact number of squares that we're an interesting version of the Brady Bunch, but we're all older adults. And I think what this has brought is kind of a battle of pandemics. Yeah, on the one hand, you have the pandemic of COVID-19 requiring all of us to stay inside, physically distance, and keep ourselves and others safe from catching this disease. And on the other hand, a pandemic that's been going on for quite some time with older adults, of isolation that can lead to feelings of loneliness and sometimes despair, as you mentioned. So just in general, if you could all just talk about what that's like now to have to deal with the idea of, on the one hand, we need to isolate, on the other, there's a sense of fear and anxiety around the idea of being away and apart from people. And anybody can speak.
I was going to say that I certainly feel, a lot of anxiety in not being able to just talk with people. But when I do talk with friends, I have friends out of state, all, from Hawaii and, Oregon and Washington and everywhere. And it just is only so much you can talk about the same things that we just went through that are digging at us and eating us up. And you don't want to keep going over that, but at some point in time, the conversations continually drift back to that. So, I think for me, this meeting on a regular basis for the writing has been valuable because it's a consistency. And if there's nothing else, that's been, I think, one of the worst parts of this, of all of what we're going through, is the horrible uncertainty that we have no idea what's coming up. And at least this class I can look to and say, okay, Tuesday's gonna be there, gonna do something creative, inspiring, energetic that way, and not dwell on all the ugliness that's out there. I mean, it's going to come out, it has to, it's there in all of us, but we get redirected all the time to tap into the creative part of ourselves. And so, we're able to become other people, or go back to a different time and place in our life when things were beautiful and wonderful, or be reminded of something that teaches us a lesson about now, because it's so similar. So
I agree with Claire, just to follow up on what she said. It means everything to me to be able to go once or twice a week and meet with people and be removed from the world, so to speak. And
Yes.
when I first was moved here, I was looking for an apartment, and I chose this apartment because of the activities and the writers groups I saw that they presented. And I didn't know how smart I was, because it's really been a lifeline since the pandemic. So thank you.
Mhm.
I think the repetition of every day is what gets to me. There's no surprises. There's nothing new. There's nothing to really look forward to, because I know it's going to be the same thing. So I started writing about stale thoughts and stale emotions, and it really got funny because for a while, everything gets stale and you start to laugh at it. All right, for a moment I do. So I'm fortunate that I haven't lost my sense of humor. I'm very fortunate. But the writing class, I have found that good writing is coming back to me, and I'm delighted. And I don't know what I'm going to write or what I'm going to say. So the mystery is still there, and that is so exciting. So that is, and then the other thing, I've started writing pages in the morning too. And then, like Oprah said, the gratitude list, blah, blah, blah. So it's, I have to make myself do things to feel better. And then sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. But when I do feel better. I do feel a sense of living, but I've got to work at it too. From what I hear from the public health doctors and whatever, they're now really concentrating on the mental illness part of what this virus has done to us and what we're going to have to cope with even after we get a vaccine. But even that acknowledgement makes me feel better, that I'm normal. This is normal. What's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like
I
to
just
say,
want, go ahead.
I'd like to say a word too about just the sustaining power of creativity and imagination, and that's an escape hatch that's always available to us. And when we started talking about putting a book together of this period of time, and people had different thoughts and ideas about it, and what it would be, and what it would embody, and what it would represent. And some people felt very strongly that the pandemic journal part of it would actually be a record for future generations or people in time to come of what this period of time was like for these people living under these circumstances. But there's so much more. This period of time has also been a continuing flowering of wonderful writing from the imagination that's filled with humor and wonderful details and images. And so I just, as important as the documenting of life under COVID-19 has been, I just, also want to emphasize that that there's so much more that this group is addressing and is doing with their writing. And Phyllis,
Sarah,
I'm sorry to.
I want to, no, that's fine. I just want to say that you are an inspiration.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've been with you for
I
what,
agree.
almost 2 years, and
Yeah.
it hasn't been an easy 2 years, okay? And you have been consistently upbeat and
Yes.
positive, and we feel so inspired by you. So I don't think anybody in this group could have asked for a better teacher. I mean, you are amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. And in addition to that, I just want to say that, I've been noticing that in the last month, my mood swings have been significant, and I think it's the election. I think that, this countdown now to whatever it is, 21, 22 days. And I feel like I'm holding my breath because it just feels like I don't know that I can go through another 4 years of this. And I feel so fragile mentally. I do. I feel really fragile mentally. And this class and other classes I'm taking are sort of what's holding me together during this last month of what's going on in the world. So thank you, all of you. Yeah.
And thank you, Tim and Engage, for facilitating all of this, because it's a lifesaver. It really is.
Absolutely, you're welcome. And it's I love the fact that the arts are the way to get through this. You know, the arts are a prescriptive cure. You know, there are countries now that prescribe the arts because we know that it causes what we're talking about. You know, I don't know how else we get through this, frankly, without arts and creativity and poetry and ways for us to create a better lens for how we understand all this. I don't know a better way. So I want to let you all know that this beautiful journal that Sarah put together, Engage is going to publish this journal. And I'm very proud to say that it's just a thing of beauty to me. I have a very lucky job. I am surrounded by beauty daily, and I'm surrounded by beauty right now. And so I really appreciate everything that you guys put into this class. It will be published in a hard form and online, and we're going to get people to read this in larger order. And I think it's a great moment in time, and I'm really happy that you were able to come on and share for our audience what you've done. It's an inspiration. It really truly is.
Thank you.
Just want to say one last word, which is I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and appreciate Leah Knopf, who designed 2020 Vision.
Right.
It was such a pleasure partnering with her on this labor of love. And
Right.
So I want us to thank her as well for her substantial contribution to making it what it is.
Thank you all. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. We stay well, and stay healthy.
And just to announce, so a week from today, our next Experience Talks Zoomcast will be broadcast Tuesday, October 20th at 2 p.m. and we'll have Maria Shriver on as guest. Former First Lady of California, best-selling author, award-winning journalist, part of the Shriver-Kennedy clan, and she also created a group called the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, which she's the head of the Task Force for Alzheimer's for the state of California. As many of you know, Sergeant Shriver passed away from the effects of Alzheimer's, so it's a topic near and dear to her heart. And they have a big summit coming up, the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, which we'll talk about and promote. So everybody tune in for that one as well. And thank you, everyone at the Burbank Senior Artist Colony. Continue to write and create and make sense of all this crazy stuff for us. We need it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining us.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.